steel is where all the action is. Not only is it a very, very important sector for the economy, it's also a crucial link in India solving its NPA problem. Now, the RBI has identified 12 mega defaulters, as we know, for insolvency, and there are a lot of steel companies on that list. So what next, and how is the sector shaping up with respect to basic demand and supply? What is the way forward in FY18? Aruna Sharma, Secretary of Steel, joins us now. Ma'am, good morning. Pleasure to have you on Trading Hour. Thank you for joining us on CNBC TV 18. I'll start with the basics. Can you tell us to what extent is the ministry involved in all the ongoing conversations that we are now hearing with respect to resolution? Are you in touch with companies like Bhushan, Monnet, a lot of the heavily indebted steel players, where banks are also now trying to find an answer?
Definitely not, because it is completely a dialogue to be settled between the lender and the loanee. Now, these two, along with the RBI instructions, they are now trying to sort out the heavy issue of NPA. The role of Ministry of Steel was at the initial stages to work out the issues and the various formulations that is available with the banks to settle this issue of NPA, to give the confidence to the bank that this is a sector which is on the revival mode, and that has been done, and that will be on the revival mode in the coming years also. And the third thing which the Ministry of Steel is doing is to wait and watch and ensure that all these NPAs are getting resolved as early as possible. So the role of Steel Ministry was just to see the platform and the kind of various formations which the bank can adopt, and therefore we had a meeting with Bankers Association and another meeting chaired by Finance Minister. After that, now it is completely between the bankers and the individual steel industries. The government has moved ahead through Ministry of Finance with the ordinance of the RBI, which has set the platform. And now we are also equally watching as to how the things are unfolding and how these industries which are into heavy NPA will be taking off. Okay. Having said that, it is equally important to have a fresh infusion of money in the steel sector.
Okay. Mrs. Sharma, just a quick follow-up.
You are asking something.
Yes. There's just a quick follow-up with regards to this. Out of a couple of the companies which are named within the 12, for example, Monnet Ispat was already in talks with another company to possibly get bid out, or possibly some assets were on sale. So in your understanding, once these accounts go through the NCLT, do you think that the same bidders can possibly buy the assets where the deal was possibly in progress?
See, NCLT will have a fresh look into each one of them. So in the sense, what all formulations the bankers and the company has worked out, if those either they will work on the same formulations, so there will be a complete fresh look into the whole system.
Okay, so the old bidders, there could be fresh bidding for assets as per your understanding for the current NPAs on record?
It all depends. It all depends how they proceed on this, right? Because all these companies have shown EBITDA positive minus Monnet. So the others which are named have shown good EBITDA positive in 16-17, and definitely their performance is well. They are in the expansion mode. So all these factors put together, the NCLT will be deciding on that.
But ma'am,
so this is completely a decision as per between the bankers and the company and the RBI resolutions.
But ma'am, to take this point forward, do you see or do you expect buyers to emerge? Because you're saying that these have been decent assets. Many of the companies are EBITDA positive. Do you expect buyers to come in, swoop down and buy the plants in totality?
It's all wait and watch.
All right, Ms. Sharma, thanks.
See, the steel plant is a huge money. Always remember that. It's not something very cheap. Yeah.
All right, Ms. Sharma, so let's shift focus there.
So it's a small amount. It's not a small amount.
All right. All right, Ms. Sharma, Nigel here. I wanted to ask you, ma'am, about the import duties. You know, on various items, the import duties were reduced, and we as a responsible channel told our viewers that these duties were reduced in less than 1%, I think, of the total imports that come in there. Is there something more that we should read? Because I think last week there was a notification that came out that on some products, import duty has been reduced to around 5%. Should we read more into it, ma'am? And also, if you could tell us, it's going to be restricted just to these products?
See, actually, yeah. No, actually, we are working on a simple formula. What all we don't have in India, there is no logic in having heavy import duty on them.
Absolutely.
Under this logic itself, the import duty was brought down to 0 in nickel.
Right.
Now, what is pending is ferronickel. That clarification we are working on. Similarly, on those grounds, CRGO, we are not manufacturing the input for CRGO.
Right.
The Nasik plant of Thyssen Group, which is going to make CRGO, will be after one stage. That cold roll fit for CRGO, they will be importing from Germany, their parent plant, and then sort of making CRGO here. That is the status today. So unless until we develop the technology to make the cold roll coil fit for CRGO, there is no logic in having a heavy import duty on it. So that has been reduced in the last notification we had recently in the last week. So with that formula we are working. So what is left today is the ferronickel and the coking coal. So on these two we are in dialogue with the Ministry of Finance, and we are very sure it will go to logical end.
All right, Ms. Sharma, also just a quick follow-up. What are the current steel imports on a per month basis? Is it at around 500,000 to around 600,000? And also, ma'am, in terms of steel demand, you know, last year demand was quite bleak. It was only around 2.5 to around 3%. The start of this year as well, the first couple of months, it's been between 1 to around 3.5%. What kind of a steel demand can we see in FY18?
Yeah, what we are looking forward is to 4 to 5% of enhancement in the steel demand as we are proceeding ahead. And let me tell you, what you are saying, it is just 1 to 3.5% is very good. You know, we took 7 years for our steel demand to increase by 10 kg per capita. As compared to that, I think in 3 years we'll be enhancing 10 kg per capita. So it is a good progress, but our intention is it should reach to double digit as early as possible, and that has a direct correlation of how much it will go in the infrastructure. Also direct correlation that how much in the housing sector people start moving towards more steel intensive buildings, and that is what the ministry is consciously working on in partnership with NBCC, in partnership with the structural engineers, in partnerships with the big retail housing developers, so as to a movement should start off to the steel intensive building both in rural and urban areas.
Okay, Mr. Sharma, we need to take a bit of a mandatory break, but we're going to ask you to hold on because we have a couple of more questions on the industry as well as the NPA resolution bit. So we're going to be taking a mandatory break, and we're going to continue our conversation just after that. Welcome back. Well, we're still in conversation with the Steel Secretary, Aruna Sharma. Ma'am, thank you very much for staying on. Well, we just had a couple of more questions with regards to the NPA situation in the steel space. So if you could just oblige us a little more. Wanted to get your thoughts in terms of the progress of resolution according to you. Say if we were to have this conversation same time next year, do you think that the NPA resolution within the steel space would have formidably moved ahead and we would be in a better place? Or do you think that there could be probably some amount of litigation which could get involved and hence the progress itself could be extended, say from NCLT to maybe other courts?
No, I am very, very optimistic about it because steel is one sector which is now on a growth trajectory. And India with a GDP growth of targeting to 7% plus, and the entire world is talking about steel in India as a bright spot. So under this scenario, I am very sure that, and not just sure about it, not just being optimistic, but confident also, that all this will get resolved because ultimately steel has to be manufactured, steel has to be sold, there is a demand, and all these NPA industries are contributing in the integrated sector a major percentage of steel. So definitely that steel mills has to be rolling and the steel has to be there in the market. So I'm quite optimistic on that, and I'm very sure that the fresh loan will begin in this sector. We are on the expansionist mode. We are already have a capacity of 126 million tons.
Right.
Already investments are on to reach 150 million tons. So by 2020, our capacity 150, yes. After that, the market will take over for the additional 150. Techno-economic parameters will take over for additional 150. So I'm too optimistic that this issue has to get resolved and the lending has to move ahead.
But ma'am, the question is by 2020, what kind of an Indian steel sector will we be looking at? I know I'm asking you to sort of crystal ball gaze now. Are we talking about maybe 3 or 4 major companies, Tata Steel, the JSWs of the world, a lot of consolidation? What role then does a company like SAIL have? Should we expect SAIL to go out there as these sort of companies and plants get put up for sale and buy some of them?
So if you look at the pie graph today, 57% is by secondary sector. So if I look at the crystal maze, secondary sector will continue to contribute 57%. 24% is in the private sector. They'll continue to have their 24%. And only 19% is with the PSU. And I'm very sure they will strengthen their 19% further. Okay. So the pie, the size in the pie is going to be same by all 3 of them. So there's no question of anybody gobbling up other. Everybody has to outdo each other. Absolutely. By better and better performances, better techno-economic parameters, lesser cost of production of steel, and more profits.
All right, Ms. Sharma, you know, first of all, you'll have done a great job in protecting the industry. We had MIP, we had anti-dumping duties, safeguard duties that are there. Fantastic, everyone's getting protected. I'm a little worried about SAIL, but ma'am, you know, last year the finance cost was close to 2,500 crores. They've been reporting losses for the last multiple quarters. Is there a plan in there? Because, you know, SAIL is the big player in the market out there. Do you all have a plan in place, ma'am, to, you know, to turn around SAIL? Can we see profit numbers coming in the next 8 quarters, 7 quarters? What is it? What is the kind of outlook over there? Because it's getting a little worrying.
No, absolutely, you have asked a very pertinent question. From the ministry, we have formulated now a body which is monitoring the performance of each of the plant of the SAIL. And each of the plant of the SAIL, we are trying to make it into a profit center through the SAIL board. And then the SAIL has to tighten its belt. The return on investments we are expecting in 17-18 it should start. Okay. They had a serious problem because they went in an expansion mode and delayed their performances. Therefore, their return of investment did not start at all. So 17-18 we are very optimistic the return on investments will start, and that will change the scenario. But yes, they have to tighten their belt, they have to compete, they have to come up with better product range and better realization on their products. Absolutely. So there is no softness on that. Absolutely. No softness on that.
Absolutely, ma'am. So let's hope that SAIL does turn around in the coming fiscal. But let's talk about NMDC, ma'am. Just a couple of quick questions over there. You know, there were a couple of rumors that maybe you're looking at capping the prices of iron ore domestically. Is that on the cards? That could be a bit of a negative for NMDC. And the second factor is NMDC has been putting in money to set up that 3 million ton plant, ma'am. The first part, ma'am, is about iron ore pricing being capped. Is that on the cards? Right. And secondly, with regard to NMDC, what's happening with regard to their 3 million ton plant that they were looking to sell?
The first part of question, the capping word is wrong.
Okay.
What we are telling them is there has to be a difference between profit and profiteering.
Correct.
And that distinction has to come up. Plus too many changes, too much of fluctuation of price within a shorter span is also not good in any business. You must have seen 2 days back, there were bettors which were operating from Punjab, where the steel price through SMS used to change at least 3 to 4 times. The pricing used to change. So all that has been stopped. Those people have been arrested yesterday and things are moving ahead. So as it is true for the steel price, equally true for iron ore, there has to be a system into it. I mean, you can't keep on changing morning, evening the price of iron ore, because iron ore is the USP of this country. We are strong in steel because we have excellent iron ore with us. So that can't become a liability. So the formula is getting worked out so that they have their profits in place, definitely, which is their main business, and they are able to operate upon it very well and move ahead. On the second part of it is that, to Orissa government also, we had discussions with them that they must, like we have done in coal, separately auction mines for the end users and separately for the mercantile. That will also put a cap onto the very high and fluctuating range of the iron ore prices as we are moving ahead. Because many a times it happens that importing iron ore is becoming cheaper than what you buy within the country, and that is not what one is looking forward to. The second part of it is that the fines to be translated as pellets, transformed into pellets, and that is something export we are going to encourage. That is going to go a very long way in getting an additional income to the entire business of steel. And you did question on NMDC on Nagarnar. So yes. Nagarnar is plant still under construction. It's anyway valuation we have to do for Nagarnar, because running of a plant will have to be a joint venture, because NMDC is not the steel running company. Neither they don't know how to make a steel. So they will have to have partners. For that, valuation is a must. So presently we are at a very initial stages of valuation, and construction is still getting completed. So we still have to go a long way into this.
Ma'am, I just want to quickly come back for a second on SAIL, just to get clarity on this. There were some reports earlier that seemed to suggest whether SAIL will, sort of come in and try and buy out some of the stressed assets. What is the ministry's view? Would you support SAIL if it were to do that, or do you think that SAIL at best should stay away and look at setting its own house in order and the huge finance cost that Nigel referred to?
You have said it. First, they have to set their own house in order, because we did make an assessment of running efficiency of different plants, and still has to go a long way of improving their efficiency as compared to their partners. So they better set their house in order immediately. They can't afford to be going into a less efficient way of working. So let them do that first, and let us see how this whole thing unfolds.
Ma'am, can you just tell us if you've had any conversations with bankers specifically with respect to Steel Authority of India? Because even within SAIL, we are looking at a very large debt pile. I mean, right now, there's no concern. We're not using the NPA word. Nobody is. But what are your discussions with the lenders to SAIL telling you?
See, unfortunately, the kind of loan which the SAIL has got, their exposure to the banks is minimal. The exposure to the banks is a very tiny percentage of the total loan they have. They have more in terms of bonds and other things. So there is no point in talking to the bankers at this point of time. And their exposure is very, very high. It is 44,000 crores of loan exposure they have. They are not NPA, being a PSU. They are regularly paying their EMIs. Okay. So they don't come into the bracket of NPA. But the bank exposure against that 44,000 is hardly, I think, 6,000 to 7,000 crores. A very small amount.
All right. Ms. Sharma.
So it's not the bankers we have to talk about. So once bankers are free from this RBI business, then maybe we will talk about the SAIL and the banks.
All right, Ms. Sharma, you're talking about iron ore pricing formula you're working on. By when can we hear about this formula, ma'am? Because there are a lot of investors in NMDC. They are rather concerned about this. If you could give us a time frame.
No, they need not. All the investors need not worry. NMDC will always be in a profit, and any formula coming will enhance their scope. Like we will ensure that they will be getting better mines, more mines as they are moving into it, and keep a balance of the iron ore.
Okay.
So it will never be at a loss to NMDC.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Sharma, just wanted to get back to the RBI issue and just wanted to clarify or confirm that you mentioned this right at the start of the conversation, that the steel secretary, or the steel ministry will not be actively involved anymore in terms of what happens to those 3 to 4 steel accounts which are now under the RBI and now with the NCLT. Is that correct, that there will be no participation anymore from the steel ministry actively?
Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Okay.
Absolutely right. At this moment of time, we are wait and watch.
Okay. What about the other, my colleague mentioned SAIL, which has a higher debt. What about the other steel companies which are not named in the 12 but have debt problems, ma'am? How are you exactly participating in possibly a resolution or a turnaround? Go ahead.
See, they are paying they are not NPAs. They are paying off their debts, and definitely I think they will work out better. And with more profits coming to the steel sector and more production coming to the steel sector, the expansion mode, a major portion will be put by the promoter themselves. So you will have some expansion money to be put by the promoter, and some they will lift from the banks. And that's the way it is. The whole thing is going to proceed.
All right, Ms. Sharma, let's wind down this conversation. Then final query I had for you, ma'am. You're telling us that you're expecting to go to around 150 million tons in the next few years. And I think the longer term that we're looking at is around 300 million tons. Do those numbers stand, ma'am? And also, from where is the investment going to come? Because it's going to be lakhs of crores of rupees. I mean, any kind of plan you'll have in terms of funding?
Yes. Surely. Like if you look at it, already the expenses are tied up to reach 150 million tons, and it is under construction or at the stage of ramping. So that is not something very difficult to go. That is doable and will be done. Above 150, as we are moving ahead with that, the rough requirement will be 10 lakh crores of rupees, but 10 lakh crores of rupees spread over 10 to 12 years is around 40,000 crores of rupees per annum. Out of that, the promoter themselves will be putting around 25, 30 to 40% of money. So banking exposure will be to a tune of maybe 20 to 25,000 crores per annum, which is not a big amount for a sector like steel. And I'm very sure with the sector going up, banks will be coming forward to lend for this kind of an expansion.
Well, ma'am,
and we can also expect a lot of FDIs into the whole process. Wow. Because, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Please continue. Please continue.
So we are expecting FDIs also in the process, and with the procurement policy of preferential treatment to the steel made in India, so maybe 40-50 million tons will come through FDIs. So with that combination, it is quite doable. So it's and we will plateau at 300 million tons.
Ma'am, you're leaving.
Continue to absorb to that extent, and that is where the country can go ahead.
Ma'am, you're leaving us with a bit of a teaser when you spoke about promoters. When you spoke about promoters bringing in more money, that's the big problem, right? Promoters putting in their equity. If that were to come in, half the problem would be solved. But you mentioned FDI, ma'am. Have there been any conversations of late? Is someone coming in?
They
Are we talking about the Japanese?
Don't worry.
By when can we hear of something?
Lot of them. Let's see. Once, like you know me, once it finalizes, I always tell you. But I don't tell what is in progress.
But the Koreans, the Japanese, where are these talks happening, ma'am? And at what stage? If you could just leave by telling us that.
No. There'll be a number of them, There may
Okay.
be surprise elements also. Wait and watch.
Okay.
We'll be waiting for the surprise then, ma'am.
All right, Mrs. Sharma, Nigel, thanks very much for joining in and giving us a whole host of talking points and a lot of news to take forward as well. But that's all.